Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I have a fun double interactive card for you today. The first is a pop-up for the inside of your card. I fought a bear for you. We're going to use the pop-up from Emergency Card Essentials number 2. And then we're using pretty much Emergency Card Essentials number 1 for that front interactive piece. There are ways that you can adapt a lot of what we're doing using die sets that you already have. So I have an A2 panel cut with that Emergency Card Essentials 1. So it's got that modern embossed outline. And then this piece cuts 2 pieces that nest together that have a diagonal cut. Then I have my scallop circle, my 2-inch circle mat, 2 scallop strips. And then I'm going to grab a piece of white shimmer cardstock using that Emergency Card Essentials number 2. We'll also use some of the unicorn sparkles. What do you guys call that? It's like these little star shiny dot. I told Tanisa, I was like, I want unicorn sparkles in my die set. So here we are. I am just ink blending along the bottom of this diagonal piece, right? So the diagonal is going to be our pocket. And if you didn't have that die set, you could create a pocket by cutting a piece of cardstock with your scissors. Then you can add any kind of decorative element. On this one, I'm adding that little scalloped strip, but there's also a little sort of twirly piece that looks kind of like frosting that I love for this. I like to just cut the whole piece and then line it up along the edge, and I can use my scissors to trim off the excess. So I don't have to worry about trying to make that perfect before I cut things apart. To create our pocket, I wanted to make sure there was plenty of room in there. So I had some extra cardstock in that same purple color, and I just cut these little strips. They're about 1/8 of an inch. If I was going to do this over, I think I'd probably just make them 1/4 inch. That is plenty small to still have room for your piece to slide in and out of the pocket. I'm just lining them up all the way on the very edge. I like wet glue for this so I can wiggle things really easily. And then again, I'll trim off the excess with my scissors. Could you glue it straight to the card? Yes. I just like it when you don't have to pull too hard, right? Like that card will move a little bit on its own, and it sort of signals to the recipient, hey, I move, maybe I might come out. Normally I write a note somewhere that kind of tells them, pull this out of here, instead of stamping all the time. It kind of depends on the project, but I like that the card can signal to them what to do with it. I am going to lay this down onto my gray piece of cardstock, trying to keep the same margin on the left and right and on the bottom. And I will just let that glue dry a little bit before I go messing with it too much, turning it into a pocket. To add my unicorn sparkles, I'm just using the leftover piece, right? So this is the negative that was left after I die cut them from some shimmer white cardstock. And I'm just going to add a little bit of wet glue into all those little holes. And I'll use my Trinity Stamps pickup stick to go ahead and add them right back in there. I know sometimes I go into a card and I feel really confident just eyeballing things and figuring out where I want all the little embellishments or sparkles, but I will tell you, about 80% of the time I'll sit there for an hour and I'm still not sure that's really where I wanted them. So this was a really great way for me to simplify my process. I tried to work pretty quickly so that I could make sure they were straight once I took that negative off of there. But there's our little like extra pop of something. I'm going to take my little card here and slide it right on in there, centering it. And then I have my little scallop circle. Well, I have the leftover from that one too, and I'm going to just tape it temporarily around the outside. I'm going to use some foam tape, okay? But I only want the foam tape on the white card and not on my pocket. So I added foam only on that sort of top part, and then I can fit this right back in there. And I know that I don't have foam tape hanging out the outside. My purple scallop circle is going to slide in and out. The card goes on the inside. The scallop goes on the outside. I love this as just a way to really marry those two pieces together. Then I have my 2-inch circle. So I am using the printable sentiments that come with Emergency Card Essentials number 1. There's a QR code on the back of the package, and when you scan it, it's going to take you to my YouTube channel, and there's a specific video that's like, I don't know, 3-4 minutes, but then linked at the top of that description box is this printable, right? It's just going to take you to my Google Drive and you download it. There are circle sentiments, rectangle sentiments, and strip sentiments that I designed to go with a variety of occasions. And then if you can't find the sentiment you want in that set, I'll link below to the emergency card kit playlist over on my YouTube channel. Those videos have these printables attached. I have over 60 of them. They're completely free. And then that way you can find sentiments for any occasion. So that die will cut just inside that printed circle. You'll know that it's centered. You don't have to worry about it. And I will use some removable adhesive to go ahead and add that onto my card. So if I change my mind later, like maybe this isn't gonna be I'd Fight a Bear for you, that's easy to fix. I have the Beary Cute Mug add-on, and there's a mug die, but then this piece goes on top of the mug. There's also the Freezin season mug add-on, the cat and dog mug add-on. This collection, right, is just awesome. I think there's a Halloween add-on too that I don't have, but I like to try to stretch what I have. So this piece would be the front of the mug. I am going to flip it upside down, and I'm adding a little bit of ink around the outside edges and then onto the ears and the muzzle. I'm going to go ahead and just glue these pieces on here so you can see what I did since I'm doing it upside down. I didn't want it to look like a mug, but I do like the general size of this. But in theory, you could use this add-on with a set of circle dies or the mug dies. I mean, you could put it on so many things. If you look at Emergency Card Essentials #1, there are 5 different faces on there, so that if you don't have a critter, right, you could make some kind of critter of your own, or you could turn an inanimate object into a critter, if you will. I couldn't help myself. So I have added on the muzzle as the ears as well. I just tucked that in the corners behind it, but then these are the pieces that are supposed to go inside of the ear. And I wanted that to cover up that corner of the mug so it doesn't look so muggy, if that makes sense. I want my bear to talk. So this is the Insider Sentiments Speech Bubble dies. And it cuts out this little black piece that I have and the speech bubble itself, but you can cut them separately. And then I have the birthday Simply Sentimental dies, and I have cut them out, or just part of that one actually. We're going to say hi. And I put some rip and stick sheet behind it. I maybe didn't need to. It's actually a pretty chunky word, but for this little black piece, that rip and stick sheet turns it into a sticker. And I suppose you could put little dots of glue behind that, right? And then I would just tap off any excess glue on some scratch paper or the back of my hand before I added it onto my speech bubble, but that was so much easier. Then I'm using the HI from birthday to make my bear say hi. A lot of the Simply Sentimental dies have the same fonts and the same sizes. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And so you actually can use interchangeable pieces on there. We're going to make our bear pop up. So here's my mechanism, and there are 3 score lines. And you want to fold carefully, right? If you feel like it doesn't want to fold backwards, then go ahead and use your fingernail and kind of press into that score line just to soften it up first. Fold it the wrong way and then fold it back the way you normally would when you sort of score and fold something. You want to take your mechanism, fold back A and D, okay? And then you're going to add adhesive only onto those, A and D. B and C are going to face you, and you're going to line that up right on the center score line of your card, right? So this is just my little template to kind of show you how this works. There is a hexagon in Emergency Card Essentials #2, the same die set the pop-up comes from, that fits perfectly on there. You're going to put adhesive on only one of those sides, either B or C. We're using B today. And then it will fold and hide totally inside of your card. But I want my bear to hide totally inside my card. So I'm going to just show you what happens. If I just add him onto the top and I go to close this, he's going to hang out the side quite a bit and a little bit out of the top. So I have to make some adjustments. I can move my mechanism and I can cut down my bear. So I have my bear completely inside of my card, totally sideways, right? I gave myself a little extra room at the top. I double check the speech bubble, it fits too. And then I'm going to place my hexagon over the top. I am going to put a dot right where the point of that hexagon meets the score line. We're going to cut away the hexagon so it hides behind the bear. So I am just making a little messy loop with my pencil. I'm going to cut away everything at the top, but I'm freezing it here. See those two pieces at the bottom, little brown pieces? I needed to draw a line there too. They're centered right now, but by the time I cut them away, they are not centered. And so I used another hexagon later to even them out and make it so my bear didn't look like he was maybe drunk and leaning. But learn from me. Do it better than I did. I am going to glue this onto my bear, kind of keeping in mind where it was before. Those lines really would have helped me here. And I'm lining up that tip right on that center score line. I'm just going to make sure that he's going to fit in my card when I do it this way. Then I will trim off the excess from the bear. And you can see I trimmed off a much bigger piece on one side than the other. He looks a little weird. If this happens to you, it's a right angle. It's a 90-degree angle. So you can take it into your trimmer. And if you trim like a sliver off of one side, just rotate it and straighten that out. Make sure it's a 90-degree before you try to install it on the pop-up. But there's my bear. And now we can work on the actual pop-up mechanism. This guy's going to go here. And I want to make sure that when I install my mechanism, it's going to go right on top of that same spot. Okay, so here it is. I have my piece with my A and D that are going to fold back behind there. And instead of putting this at the top, I want that bottom point on the dot that we made. So I'm adding glue where I just put my little scribble lines. Okay, glue onto those two. I like to fold them back. And then for me, I'm right-handed. It's easiest to hold this at the top with my right hand. I'm going to line that up. I'm just going to color the pencil mark so I don't have to worry about erasing it later. And my score lines are perfectly lined up. While the glue is still wet, I want to close this. If it's not in there right, if I'm not lined up right on that score line, it'll pop off or buckle, and then you know, hey, I maybe need to move this. The glue is still wet. That's easy to do. If you wait until the glue is dry or you use a dry adhesive, you don't have that same wiggle room. But I'm going to open and close this a couple times. Just make sure everything feels right. And then I can add my bear. He's going to go right at the top. I can't have him folding to the right because that's where my high is going to go. So I'm going to add him onto the left. It doesn't matter which triangle you use here, B or C, except that if you're not using the hexagon that came with it, right? You adapt it for a bear or something else. One side needs a really clean fold right there. See that? That's where it's going to fold. And so I have to make sure one of my two sides can fold that way, and that's the side I want to put the glue on. I'm double checking to see where this is going to overlap my bear, and I will add glue only onto those pieces. I want a fair bit of overlap. If it goes out too far down into the card, I do create a little bit of a catch point. You can always sort of use your hand to work the paper, give it a little bit of curve where that speech bubble is so it opens and closes more cleanly. But I just opened and closed it 2 or 3 times and I had no problems at all after the first one. I'm going to add glue now onto the front of my card. I kept that front panel completely separate so that if something went horribly awry with the pop-up, I didn't have to start the front part over, right? I keep them separate until they're both done. I add a little glue. And then we're almost done. I do want to add an inside sentiment. These are the rectangle sentiments that come with Emergency Card Essentials #1. I cut out my scallop rectangle, and then this die will cut out any of those rectangle sentiments, but I'm actually going to use my trimmer because then I can make sure I preserve all of them. I'm using my trimmer to connect the tick marks on the top and bottom, but I leave that header intact so I have these strips, and when I rotate, I will still have the tick marks on the side. Then I just slide the blade of my trimmer through and I will get these perfectly cut rectangle sentiments. For emergency card sentiments, the whole idea is that the circles and rectangles are all the same size in every kit, so you can mix and match the sentiments at the last minute if you need a card for something unexpected. So I'm going to add my happy, happy, happy birthday onto my rectangle with some wet glue, but then I'll add that to the inside of the card with removable adhesive. Maybe this isn't going to be a birthday card later. It might be. But I'd Fight a Bear for You could be a thank you card. Or I could use Isn't It Great to be gorgeous and smart? Or the other one, this could have been a glitter bomb. My friends, I hope this inspires you. Here is a fun way to stretch that pop-up mechanism, but you can make this front interactive element with lots of supplies you probably already have. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.